I am excited today that I have Carrie Miller. She is a Feng Shui and energy clearing practitioner and author of the book Feels Better, Flows Better, Feng Shui for Inspired Living. For nearly 20 years, Carrie has been passionate about showing women how their surroundings impact their energy, mood, confidence, and even how much money they make. She believes that when you are in an environment that feels good, you're better able to thrive. That means you're able to show up more fully in all parts of your life, at home, at work, in your relationships. And when you show up more fully, you get more back. Carrie offers Feng Shui guidance both on site and virtually, and works with her clients over a period of time to help them implement the changes so they can be confident that they're making the best changes and have an accountability partner and coach through the process. Carrie, thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk to you. This is going to be fun.
So tell everyone a little bit about your journey. You didn't graduate high school, I'm sure, and say, hey, I'm going to be a Feng Shui practitioner. So how did you get here? And just
Yeah.
share a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, I definitely I went to hospitality management. That's what my degree is in, and I worked in hospitality field for many years, which is a fast way to burn out. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of weekends. And I was burnt out. I was at a point in my life where I was kind of searching for what was new, how to change, how to make life better. And I had just bought a condo and I stumbled across a book in the bookstore that was about feng shui. And it was really talking about setting up your space, which I was in the process of doing, but also doing it intentionally in a way that you are creating the life that you want. And I hadn't really been very intentional with my life before, so it seemed like a really good investment. And I bought the book and applied stuff and watched like things change and click into place over the next 6 months to 12 months. And the transformation was real. And I stuck with it and played with it wherever I went. And then finally studied it and started offering it as a service because I could see the transformation in myself and wanted to share it with others too.
I love that. We always have to be our first client, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Um, so can you explain what Feng Shui is to those who may not be familiar with it and how it actually does influence our living and working environments?
Yeah, so feng shui is a thousands of years old practice that originates in China. And it's moved into the West probably in the last 25 to 40 years. And it looks at the way that qi or unseen energies are flowing through a space and how that energy flow affects the way the space feels and how it affects how the people in the space feel. And it's also the practice of making adjustments in the surroundings so that the energy is more beneficial to the space and to the people in the space. And you can really target it into a way where if you want to focus on building wealth, that you can build wealth by looking at the wealth area of your home. So it can be very, very targeted and very powerful.
I love that. What are some of the most common misconceptions about Feng Shui?
I think people initially think it's about number one, living minimally and decluttering everything and, having a very minimal lifestyle. That's not necessarily true. I also think people think automatically that it's about moving all your furniture or even having to move out of where you are because it has bad luck and it doesn't align with you. And that's all definitely not the case. We are really very modernized and working with the way people live their lives now and trying to enhance their space so it looks and feels good and supports them energetically.
I know when you and I worked together a couple of years ago, one of the things we talked about was my office
Yeah.
and not having my back to the door.
Yep.
And I had a mirror, which is now covered up, and
Yep.
you had made some suggestions around that. But I remember one of the things you said to me, because I tried, this room just wasn't conducive to me moving it and having this really huge desk. And you said to me, well, but are you okay? Like, does it feel good for you? And I was like, this is the only spot that feels good, right? So I love the intentional part of that,
Right.
because even though the feng shui says that I shouldn't, right? And I'm on Zoom all day long, so I see behind me,
Yeah.
but the intentional piece, like I was forcing myself to rearrange that wasn't going to feel good for me where this does.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's really about working with the way people work and live their lives. So there are definitely feng shui rules, and there are reasons for those feng shui rules because the energy is influencing you in a certain way. And there are, of course, ideal situations where you can set your space up so it's energetically strong. But it doesn't always work in today's, like, unfortunately, architects don't really pay that much attention when they build homes. And so it's not really thought through, and you're moving into a space that exists with your furniture that already exists. And sometimes the ideal doesn't work. So the next layer is, okay, if we can't put you in the ideal situation, how can we make sure that the energy is not having a negative influence on you? And we try to and soften the flow of energy or strengthen you so that it's not having as big of a negative impact on you.
Yeah, I love that. What would you say to somebody who thinks this is like woo, right? I'll use
Yeah,
that term, right? Because it really isn't. It's been around for, you said, thousands of years, right?
right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we've all walked into a space where we just walk in and we know, oh, like this doesn't feel good. Or we've been in a situation where we've been in surroundings that didn't feel good to be in, and we have felt worse because of it. And we've all been in situations where we've walked into a really beautiful setting and it really lifts you up and energizes you. So it's very common sense. Like we've all had that experience. We just may not attribute it to the fact that it's about energy. We just think about it in terms of, oh, it was the location or it was the people in the space, or we blame other things. But really, the underlying energies are what's setting up that feeling and that flow.
I love that. How do you typically work with your clients?
Yeah, I work both on-site and virtually. So we either I go to a person's home and we tour through the space, we talk about what's going on in the space, what's working for them, what challenges they're facing. And as we're walking through the space, I'm looking for ways that the space is working against what they're trying to create. And then we come up with an action plan, and we work together over a couple of different follow-up calls to implement changes and make sure that it's actually feeling better and flowing better for them and helping them feel more energetically supported. In a virtual session, they would send me a video of the space and we meet via Zoom and also do a tour on the space. So I'm able to really get a sense of the way the house is working for them or against them by seeing it on camera.
Yeah, and I don't, me personally, I've worked with you and I've worked with decorators who also do some feng shui. And so I've I've tapped into it a little bit. And one of the things that was fascinating to me last year, we've been in our house 23 years, and Carrie's been to my house. So you have a son,
Yep.
if you remember it, but
Yep.
my living room and my dining room are the main parts of my home.
Yep.
And the living room, we had picked out paint. We painted like everyone else did in 2020, right? But I never got new carpet, and I never got new furniture. So I had a slip cover on an old sofa, and different, nothing matched, but it was fun. Like everything was functional in my house.
Right.
And I had picked out carpet and tile with a decorator about 6 years ago, but it was just never in the budget. We didn't do it. And last year, I just was like, I can't anymore. We really need to do this. And we couldn't find different carpet. We really had our heart set on this carpet we picked out last year, 6 years ago. So last year, we made the decision to get the carpet and the tile for our living room. And then when we went to buy furniture, our intention was just to buy a sofa, but we saw this dining room set. And my dad, when I bought my house, the one thing I wanted in a home was a dining room because I love
Yeah.
to entertain. But my dining room was everyone, it was a mismatch of other people's shit. And it wasn't mine, right? It was
Yep.
my dad's table. He bought it building 19 and a half whatever 25, 30 years ago, and somebody's china cabinet that I bought off a Facebook Marketplace, and some cheap thing I got from Target. So I saw this dining room set when we were shopping, and it was within our within the credit limit they gave me at the store. So I was
Yeah.
like, I need to have that. It has been so, the energy in our home now, same amount of furniture. It's, I think I even have more furniture now, but I own it now, and
Yeah.
it's mine, and it's my style and taste.
Yeah.
And what I actually found was I actually now decorate, which I didn't do before because there was nothing to decorate. It wasn't mine. I didn't want to make it prettier because it was like putting lipstick on a pig, right? But the energy in the home now, like we actually enjoy being in those rooms where before it
Yeah.
was just functional.
Yeah, it makes a big difference because when there's so much attached to that. Some of the stuff that when you have hand-me-down furniture, there can be like energetic attachments to the people or the places where it came from. So that can be a vibration that holds you down or that makes the space feel off. It's just not energetically aligned with who you are and where you're going. And so in a sense, it's holding you back from what you are trying to pull together or to create in your life. And so when you do make those changes or investments in an intentional way that feels aligned with who you are and what you want and what you're trying to create in your life and in your home, you have really changed the vibration of what your potential is. So
Yeah.
yeah, powerful changes.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
painted my doors purple, my front doors and my side door.
Yes.
Like
Yep.
it's purple, right? Like I know there's the certain colors. Like let's talk a little bit about colors, because there are certain colors in Feng Shui that have meaning, correct?
Definitely. All the colors have meaning, and you'll see that in color psychology anyway, but like yellow is a very happy and uplifting color. Blue is a very calm and sedate color. And so you can be intentional about what kind of colors and frequencies, color frequencies that you bring into your space, and you can create the energy and the mood that you want by using that. So you may not choose to paint the walls orange, but you can bring in pops of orange that really uplift and energize the space, because that's kind of also an activating color. So
Mm.
yeah, so much that you can do with just a simple color change.
I love that. Yeah, we won't tell my husband about the orange. Orange is one of his, he's a land surveyor, and
Oh, yep.
that's orange. So he would paint the walls orange if given the opportunity.
That's so funny. Yeah.
What are some simple Feng Shui tips that anyone can apply to their home or workspace to really create more of a harmonious environment? Are there one or two
Yeah.
things that you would suggest that they could do?
The first thing that I always suggest is to take a look at your front door. You just mentioned painting your front doors. Take a look at your front door. That is actually the source of chi into your home. And so making sure that your front door is welcoming and pleasant to move through, and that the doorbell works and the light works and the numbers are clear. It allows energy to find you and to move into your home. So that's a number one key that I always recommend for people. Just this past weekend, I went out and I swept the front stoop, and I freshened up the flowers, and I washed off the handle to the door. So it really helps circulate energy in a positive way into your home. So that would
Now,
always be number one.
so my front door is not the door that I use.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm sure I'm not the only one, right? We have a side door. The people come in through the mudroom. My front door actually walks right into my dining room, because the dining room used to be, it's a ranch, and there was an addition to it. So what would you say to, how do you work around that?
Yeah, so I still would focus on your front door. You want to dress up that architectural feature of the front door, because that's where the energy is going to go. And I would encourage you to find a reason to use the front door. So you don't have to enter through the front door every time you leave or come home. But if you can find a reason to use it to circulate energy, you'll be calling more energy into your house. So take the dog for a walk, go out through the front door, or go get your mail through the front door. It will help freshen up the energy of the whole home by using that entrance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Amazon. I usually get my Amazon packages because
Yeah.
they do it there. But sometimes I'll just open the door to just allow the energy to
Yep.
circulate. So
That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you share a story of where maybe implementing feng shui really transformed someone's life or business? Um,
I could share like 50. Yeah, it's
what's
so
your favorite?
amazing. Yeah, my favorite thing is like I was just on a call this morning. I actually three different people this week who are all business owners, and they're all in that state of sort of stepping into a new layer of their business. So they're launching something. They're stepping into a space of visibility where they're maybe sharing a new message or speaking a new something new that they want to share. There's all that like am I going to be received well? There's that limiting beliefs and that doubt around it. And really, we talked about ways that you can anchor what you're wanting into your space. So you're trying to grow and to light that fire under your message, but you're also fighting with these doubts or limiting beliefs over whether people are going to receive it well. Put the message in front of you, put some testimonials that you've had in front of you, put some reminders of the benefits and transformation that you've brought to other people right there in your surroundings so that it's keeping you anchored to that positive benefit that you're capable of, but that sometimes those limiting beliefs will kick in and make you question. And so your surroundings can really be set up in a way so that they're helping you kind of achieve the thing that you want to achieve that can be hard to do. You can kind of slip back into those old patterns. We can change the patterns around you so they're reminding you of what you're capable of and what your strength is rather than what your weakness is.
I love that. I actually right in front, as you're talking, I have right in front of me a coach that I worked with years ago had me, I think it's 50 words to describe myself. Right. And
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and as she had handwritten it, and about, I don't know, a year or so ago, I mean, it was on my wall, but a year or so ago, I put it in Canva and made it look pretty. Right. So I look
Yeah.
and there's different things that I go, oh yeah, that is me. Right. But it reminds you of that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, what we're really looking to do in, in one layer of feng shui is look at how we can anchor in what you're trying to create, what you're calling in, so that you can start to, it's almost like your home becomes a three-dimensional vision board for the life you're creating.
I
So
love
you're
that.
really anchoring in. It's not just having like I have my vision board over here,
Yeah.
but I also have lots of symbols and reminders around my house so that no matter where I am, I'm actually in the energy of that vision that I want to create for my life and for my business.
I love that. My
Yeah.
vision board's right in front of me as well.
Yeah. Love
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
What are can you explain the role of the elements in feng
Yeah. Yeah.
shui?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's probably one of the more complicated layers of feng shui, but we look at the balance of five elements in a space. And if you think about in nature, when there are these five elements are all present and working together, they are creating an energizing, life-giving force. So when there's wood, water, earth, metal, and fire all present in a balanced way, it will give life to the area. And we want to create that in your house. And so a lot of times when somebody says that they're not comfortable in their space or their space doesn't just feel good, a lot of times it's that the elements are out of balance. So they might have a ton of wood in the space or a ton of water in the space, but the other elements are not represented. And each of these elements has an energy and a frequency to it, and even a personality to it. So as you add them and balance them, it just automatically makes the space feel better and energetically thrive more. So I hope that's a good explanation, but that's
Yeah,
really the way that I play with the elements.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's Let's talk about clutter a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I know myself, I said to my husband the other day, all right, we just got to clean this pantry room, right? Like I can't keep walking into it and having all this or my office, right? When it gets too much.
Yeah.
How does clutter play a role in how people show up, and what are, not everyone can get out of their own way and remove some clutter. And sometimes clutter is just stuff that you aren't willing to part with.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really a modern topic in feng shui because if you think thousands of years ago, we didn't have all this stuff. It's really like
Sure.
the last 100 years that we've become this cumulative society where we collect all this stuff. But what it does physically in a space, it will stop the energy from being able to flow, and it will start to weigh the space down and make it feel heavy and thick. And when the energy is not moving in the space, it stops moving in your life. And that's when you start to feel kind of stuck, like things aren't going in your direction. You're not getting opportunities. You're not getting clients. So the physical block that clutter makes is really part of the problem with feng shui. But it's also taking a look at what you're using. Like clutter isn't really clutter unless it's something that you're not using anymore. So if you use it, if you love it, if it's useful to you, but you're just not using it at the moment, then it's not necessarily clutter. Like it's serving a purpose in some way or will at some point in the future. But there tends to be a lot of stuff that we keep that isn't really helping us in creating the life or the home or the business that we want. It's really actually hindering us. And that can be both in that physical way, that physical block way, but also in that energetic way. Like we can hold on to old pieces of furniture that remind us of that critical mother-in-law that we had, or we can hold on to, stacks and stacks of old paperwork in our business that aren't moving our business forward, and they're actually blocking potential opportunity. So clutter's a really big deal it's really a big deal to just take a look at your space and the things that you're keeping, and just ask yourself the question, is this supporting the life I'm trying to create? Or is it holding me back? And maybe it's time to find a way to move things on and let things go. And the really good thing about moving things on is when you're holding on to it, you're stopping energy from flowing. But when you let go of it and let somebody else who needs it pick it up, it creates this circulation and this flow that's been missing in your life or in your business.
I love that. A couple of things just came to mind as you were talking. And I can't remember if this was when you and I worked together a few years ago, but it might have been. I was told I had in my office, I had this desk drawer, and I feel like it might have been you now that I'm thinking it through. I had all this stuff from my days in corporate. I used to be a
Yeah.
leader. So I had all this customer service stuff and leadership stuff. And, in case, and not, it wasn't in case I'm going to go back to corporate, but if I was to do some corporate work in my business. But and again, I'm going to just say it was you, because now that I'm saying it, I think it might have been you,
Yeah.
but you said, well, but you're holding on to all that. And I remember how cathartic it was to get rid of it, because I thought, okay, any of this stuff I can Google, right?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
actually don't really need all these papers. And I remember sitting, and I took them out of this office actually and just sat and went through each thing. And do I really need this? And I did something similar not that long ago. And it just, when you're clearing that out, right? Like old client paperwork. Okay, like
Yeah.
it's been years. This person, you're not working with this person again. And if you do, like I actually had somebody I worked with a couple of years ago, and I threw her folder away, and
Yep.
she surfaced back. Well, whatever we talked about 2 years ago, 3 years ago isn't really relevant today, right? I remember
Right.
some of the conversation. So we're just going to start fresh anyways.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to talk about clutter. So my sister's getting divorced, and she sold her house last summer, and I was storing a bunch of her stuff in my basement
Yep.
right below my office.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we store a lot of stuff down there too. And she has a foundation, and a lot of it was stuff for her foundation. And I said to her about 2 months ago, I'm like, I really need you to get this stuff out of my basement. I can't even move in there. And she finally did. About a month or so ago, she did, maybe 6 weeks ago, and things have shifted in my business.
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
had so much, like, I just thought, oh, things are changing. But in the last couple of weeks, I've had much more activity than
Yep.
I had before. Like, I knew
Yeah.
having that congestion right below me, like, I knew I was feeling it. But now, as we're talking, I'm like, oh, that's
Of
why things
course.
started flowing again.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it's really powerful. Like literally people will be feeling so stuck and they won't relate it to the fact that they might need to let go of things or let go of some past things. But as soon as they do, that's when the energy starts moving again. That's when they start feeling better again. And all of a sudden they've made room for a new opportunity new clients, new whatever to flow into their realm. So yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people work remote now, whether they're in their own business or working for somebody else. What would you say? What are some tips, right? Because it's important to separate your work
Yeah.
and your personal. So what are some tips that you would suggest? Like I know in our house, I have an office. We built an office, and you'll appreciate this, for my husband who has not used it. He's still using the
Yep.
living room,
Yep.
which is fine. But there's still like sometimes I walk out there and I'm like, can you put your stuff away? Right. So, but
Right.
what would you, I work for myself, he works for another company, but energetically, what would you suggest? What are some tips for people that are working from home and they don't want to have that work always in front of them?
Yeah, I talk to a lot of people who are in that situation now, and what's happening for many people is never disconnecting from work
Yeah.
and never feeling like they're fully focused on work either. They're often pulled away from their work to be distracted because there's dishes in the sink or there's something family oriented going on. And so the lack of boundary is very blurred with this new, work from home hybrid type of situation. And it's really powerful to create some type of container for that business so that you have a space to keep all the stuff, to do all the work, and to really, when you sit in there, it almost triggers that, okay, I'm serious, I'm sitting down to business. And when people can't do that, it's really important to, like, if you have to work at your dining room table or you're working in the living room or you're working in the corner of the bedroom, it's really important to like vocalize the boundaries and create, like, almost create like like spoken boundaries about what you need in order to keep a bubble around the work that you're doing, and also create really strong rituals. So at the end of the day, if you're sitting at your dining room table, like literally force yourself to close everything down and even put things away so that you can fully disconnect from the work and fully connect with family stuff that's going on, or just that other part of your life where you want to regroup and recharge from work. There's definitely a situation where people are getting burned out because they don't ever have a break from any of it. And so
Yeah.
you can use the energy flow or the physical structures in your house, like a door, to create that boundary or create that wall between the different parts of life and really encourage that separation of the parts of life.
I love that. As you're speaking, I'm thinking around my own house. I'm like, my laptop, I have a desktop in here, but I have a laptop and that's just out there. So when I want to sit and watch TV and do some work, I can, but it's out and
Yep.
about and it should be away. And if I choose to, then that's different, but to just
Yeah.
leave it out.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I will go take care of that when we're done here.
Well, a lot of
Um,
people will work at their bed, like they'll have the laptop in their bedroom and they'll do a few things at night, but then that's affecting their rest and their sleep and not really allowing them to actually like really on a health level get the rest they need so they can show up fully for work the next day. So
right.
yeah, it's really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think are some common mistakes that people might make when they first try to implement feng shui? And what are some things they can do to avoid that?
Yeah, I think that the one thing that I see a lot is people are putting cures or adjustments into place from their place of limits. Like we all come to the table with limiting beliefs or doubts or fears about the vision that we have for our life or our business. And when you're putting, cures or adjustments in place on your own, sometimes the limits and the fears will kind of speak to what you end up putting in place. So you're still putting that pattern into play that you're trying to move beyond. So, for example, if you're looking to call more wealth into your life or your business, one of the cures or symbols that we would recommend is putting a big, healthy plant in the wealth area of your home, which represents growth and expansion. And I often will, give that advice and then see the result that people put is they'll choose a plant that's really rooted into a pot or a plant that's kind of small and or is starting to get sickly, and that's like really setting a pattern up that's limiting that wealth that they're trying to call in. So it's kind of almost like energetically limiting themselves by how they put things into place without really having the coaching to say, okay, let's think of something bigger. Let's think of something beyond that pattern that will break that pattern so that you're calling in something new.
What about someone like me that has a black thumb and is not good with plants? Can you do a
Yeah,
plastic plant?
you definitely can. There's different layers. Like a lot of people will say that plastic plants aren't good feng shui, but to me, it's symbolic of life. Like you may not have that actual living, thriving item there, but you have now put something there that at least is symbolic of that, right? The thing that you want to avoid is the dead plant or the dying plant, because
Right.
that's then symbolic of,
The dead.
life
Yeah.
retreating. So yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. Um, what are some, if people have one takeaway today, what is something that you would want that they could go and implement themselves today to help to just kind of play with the energy?
Yeah, I would say go and move 9 things. Like you don't even have to declutter, you don't have to clean anything, but just look around your space and move 9 things around. And then sit and wait and watch. I guarantee you something will shift or change. You'll get good news, you'll get an unexpected check, you'll feel better. Like all of these things can happen, but you have power and potential over your surroundings, which gives you power and potential over what you attract into your life. And so it's kind of a fun way to just play with the power that you have at your hands. And moving 9 things shifts the way the energy flows and shifts what will come in your direction. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
So imagine if you moved 18 things, that would even
Yeah,
be.
yep. I always like to do like multiples of 9. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Hey, I do that every once in a while in my office. I'm like, all right, that was over here. Now I want to go put it over here. And it does, it
It
feels
just feels
different.
better. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And like even I did it a few weeks ago and I'm like, I don't know if it works, but I might move it again and then
yeah,
put some things away. They're too much on my desk, right? But yeah.
yeah,
It needs to be functional and
yeah.
and feel good.
And
What
you know what I love about that is like I used to do this with my kids. Like I would take half the toys and hide them for a couple of months and then pull them all out. It's like when you move things around, it's almost like Christmas Day. Like when it surprises you. You're like, oh, I forgot I moved that. It looks good over there. So it
right.
like really shifts the way that you're showing up on a day-to-day basis too.
Yeah, I love that. What is something that you live by that you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, something that I live by. Um, I live by the fact that my surroundings are an energetic extension of me, and I can like make my life better by changing things around me. Like a lot of people do the internal work. I actually start outside of me and work on that and play with that. And then I find that change comes from that as well.
I'm curious. So I work with clients doing the internal stuff,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious, if somebody hasn't done any type of internal work, are they more resistant to feng shui, or is it easier to do the external because then they don't have to look at themselves, right? Because energetically, it's
Yeah.
intention and it's energetics, right? So I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
move shit around my office, but if I sit here and go, well, I don't have any clients and nothing's going to happen, it's still not going to, I would imagine, even within
Right.
feng shui, they're still not going to be knocking my door down, right?
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand. And
Yeah.
but once you start making the changes on the outside, it's almost like you can't help but create change on the inside as well. So for a lot of people who are resistant to the inner work, I think it's really helpful to like make some changes in the environment because it like creates a shift. Like it starts the momentum changing for them. And sometimes it can make it easier for them to look at what's going on inside that really is the source of what's going on
And
outside.
outside
Yeah,
always
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
It always is.
And the one thing I would say is that no matter what, if you're doing that inner work and you're making changes and adjustments in your life or habits or behaviors, your home has to evolve too. Otherwise, it's just going to keep you in the same old place. Like you can do the changes on the inside, but when you're in the frequency of the old stuff, it's not going to stick as easily. So I think they go hand in hand for sure.
Right. I love that. Oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation. We could probably keep talking,
Yeah.
but I do pull cards at the beginning of each session, and today I pulled them from the Sacred Traveler deck. Love this deck.
I love Denise Lynn. Yeah.
So, have you ever seen? Do you have this deck?
I don't have that deck, but I follow Denise Lynn because she's a feng shui practitioner as well. So she's
Oh,
very,
perfect.
very, yeah. Yeah.
See, I love how this works, right?
Yep.
Like there's a lot of decks I could have chosen,
Yep.
and I chose that. So that's beautiful. So I have three cards. I have left, center, and right, and I'm going to have you choose first.
Left.
Left.
Yep.
I love when I know what people are going to choose. I'm like, I was already kind of here. So this is stay focused, hold the course.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
These cards are such a beautiful stock too. And then the center card is reaching your destination. Your light is shining brightly.
That's gorgeous. Wow.
And the right card is, I love, you just can't make this stuff up. Like there really is definitely a theme here. Traveling lightly, simplify your life.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that.
So good.
Carrie, thank you so much for being here. And for those of you listening, thank you for joining me on today's episode, A Journey Towards a More Enlightened and Fulfilling Life. I really hope that today's episode has inspired you to embrace your inner wisdom and navigate your path with a renewed sense of purpose. Remember, transformation begins from within and from without, from the out. Take a moment today to connect with your higher self and trust that the universe is guiding you towards your highest good. And if you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, download, leave a review, and share this podcast with those who might benefit from our message. Your support helps reach others on their spiritual journey. Stay connected with our community. All of our social media links will be in the show notes. You can visit my website at Forever Change Coaching. Carrie's will be in the show notes as well. You'll get all my upcoming events and ways to stay inspired. You can also receive a resource to check out if you are ready for your big ass up level. There's some journal prompts in there and a link to have a conversation with me if you're open to it. And until next time, continue to shine your light and walk in peace. I am Francine Tirrell, and this has been FN Fridays with Francine. Carrie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Oh, one thing we didn't talk about, Carrie does have an offer. Want to share what the offer is going to be that they can get and we'll put the links in the show notes.
Yeah, so I actually have a free resource that's connected in there, and that is about sort of jumpstarting the energy flow of your surroundings to help you be more focused and productive. So I really find that we can actually tap into the energy around us instead of efforting through the things that we have to get done in life and work. And this
Perfect.
will help. Yeah.
All right. And that link will be in the show notes. Thank you so much and have a fabulous rest of your day.